Hello and welcome to Blazing Gamer, and in this video this video is basically an update to the previous video I made on a Minecraft like voxel game in Unity. And since that video I have made many changes to my voxel engine, so let's just start it. So the biggest thing is I completely rebuilt the whole architecture of the voxel engine, and currently the voxel engine supports infinite world, collision system, and building and destroying of blocks. So like the previous system, we have all these world controls for generation, and we have two game modes, the free cam and first person. So let's just increase the world size and go to the free cam mode. As you can see, currently I have infinite world, and if I press the F3 I'll get the coordinates, and the world is infinite right now. So the way this was achieved was actually by redoing the whole system. The previous system worked on game objects, so all of my chunk columns were mono behaviors, and I have chunk renderers as mono behaviors. So the main world game object used to spawn chunk columns, and the chunk columns used to spawn chunk renderers. Now, instantiating game objects at runtime is a heavy task, and doing this for so many objects and also the mesh generation takes a lot of time. So right now I have no game objects. Basically you can use the Unity graphics API directly to draw meshes, so I don't need to use mesh filters. Mesh filters was the reason that I had to create game objects, but since I can now directly use the graphics API directly, there is a method called graphics.drawMesh, to which you provide a mesh and a transform, and it draws the mesh there for a single frame. So right now all chunk columns and all of these are just basic classes, they don't inherit from anything, and meshes are created. So you can't create meshes on separate threads because you can't create Unity objects like major objects. You can create vector 3s on separate threads, but you can't create meshes on separate threads. But what I can do is create the vertex arrays, UVs, and triangles on a separate thread. So basically the mesh data is created on separate thread, then that is sent over to the main thread where it is copied into the mesh, and that's how the meshes are built. So basically every update I convert the player's coordinate to the chunk coordinates, and according to the chunk coordinates and the draw size I query more coordinates, and if their mesh has been built for those coordinates, those meshes are rendered, and if they haven't been built, a thread is started to build those meshes and then they are rendered. So that's basically how the new voxel engine works. And after that I started the collision systems, and I'm basically using box colliders. So on each update I query the world for visible blocks, and around the player, like 5 blocks in each direction around the player, I query the world and I get transforms, and I instantiate, not instantiate, I just move box colliders to those positions. They are basically object pooling has been applied here. So if I go to the first person mode, and you can see there is full collision system, and my character controller isn't that great because I didn't work on it much. And if we left click we can destroy the world, and if we right click we can add blocks. So right now you can only add these stone blocks, but changing the type of block isn't that much of a deal, so I basically need to implement an inventory system, which I will be doing next. But the whole construction and building mechanism right now is fully working. So this basically happens with the colliders. So whenever I right click or left click, there's a ray cast from the camera's position to the world, and depending upon which collider hit, either that collider's block is destroyed in the chunk, or depending upon the direction from which is hit, a new block is created, and then that chunk mesh is regenerated on the main thread. Currently the build system runs on the single thread, and it's actually faster because I don't need to regenerate a whole lot of chunks. I only need to generate one chunk, or at max 4 chunks if it's the extreme corner block. So generating these many amount of chunks on main thread isn't that much a problem. Like, I tried doing the build system on the multi-thread also, but it was actually slower on multi-thread. So the build system currently works on the main thread, and that's how the which uses the collision system. So the next thing I have planned is, first is water, uh, and water and biomes will actually happen together. So at max I'll have an ocean biome which will have water. So I have like 2-3 ways to implement water, and I'm not currently fixed how should I do it. The one way is having an infinite water plane, but that won't be that good because it will like sit on suppose at level y level 15. So anywhere the water drops below 15 there will be water. So that can be easily done, or I can have water as a block which can have an transparent texture, and that can be rendered. That can also be shown as water, and there are many other ways to do water, but I would like to integrate it into the biome and have an ocean biome where the water would be. Right now I'm not doing any rivers or caves, and that brings me to cave generation and river generation. So those things will basically work on 4D noise. So basically I haven't researched more about it, but the way it works is, you query the world space uh, for 3D data like X, Y, and Z, and there would be a block or wouldn't be a block, and that's basically how I guess it works. I'll have to research that. And the another problem with the current collision system is that enemies, because since the box colliders are placed only around the player, that is like 5 blocks in each direction, I can't have enemy over there that can move around because there won't be any box colliders there. And the reason for this limitation is like, moving the box colliders isn't that much taxing. It's actually the physics update which happens in the underlying physics system of Unity that takes time. So when I was implementing the collision system, at first I did it for around 2 chunks in every direction. So there were about 50,000 box colliders, and when I move from a chunk to chunk, the box collider need to be updated. So it was taking about 80 ms, 80 milliseconds to do that physics update only. The box colliders would move really fast and it wasn't visible in the profiler, but the big spike was an physics update which is of 80 ms. So I may come up with some other collision system, but right now, since there aren't any other entities in the world that need the collision system, this is perfectly fine, and I'm getting a reasonable high FPS. Also, there are many more optimizations that can be done to the mesh building system itself, and I have marked them out, and I'll be doing those. And I just want just leave some comments about what you think about the progress so far, and if you have any ideas uh, about how I can improve this, and I'd love to hear them, and subscribe for more content. So thank you.